We are live here. We're live here at Jackson and Jackson podcast. I am Kung Fu CJ, your host, and tonight's topic is the the religions of the world coming together. We're going to be talking about a lot about the occult, and hopefully, my guests can come in, chime in, and give their takes on it. We will be using books like Kingdom of the Cults by Walter Martin, Tim Johnson's book Ancient Paganism, The Sorcery of the Fallen Angels, and also a book written long time ago. When I say long time ago, it doesn't have a barcode. Jacob Araza, who was in the rock music industry, and the name of his book is Backward Masking, Unmasking Backward Satanic Messages of the Rock and Roll Exposed. So, won't y'all just, go ahead and get your popcorn ready as we play the intro for a few minutes. All right, I'm still here. Made a mistake. So right now my guests are not here yet. Um, I want to start off with there are a lot of beliefs. There are a lot of beliefs that are out there, and I remember um, my uncle telling me about Billy Graham, how he's been invited more than once to the Vatican to basically converse with all the other world religions. And Billy Graham always said no. In his humbleness, he never thought he was the leader of the Christian churches here in America. And that's why he always said no. So when we look at these things, I'm looking at these other religions. I want to start with Walter Martin's book because he has them listed. You know, he even in his book he talks about the Kabbalah, astrology, Satanism, witchcraft, Wicca, goddess worship, uh, traditional religions like Mormons and Jehovah Witnesses, Jesus of the occult, the people of the way, those type of people, spiritism, or as you might know it as Hinduism, Buddhism, and the list goes on. In this, we have to we have to basically you have to go back in history In chapter 4 of his book, he talks about the ancient paganism. And that's what we'll get to with Ken Johnson's book, Ancient Paganism. A lot of a lot of the religions that are here now that we know about are ancient religions. Okay, they go back, way back in the time, and we're talking about Hinduism, Buddhism, um, astrology, and the Chaldeans. All of these have different belief systems. When we talk about paganism, and a lot of paganism is in Catholicism, and people don't know this. Like ancient paganism teaches the existence of one supreme being. Multiple gods exist under the authority of this one being. Okay, which uh, proves that demons exist separately from these gods. Jesus is one powerful God among many gods. This is what they teach when they teach multiple gods. Hinduism teaches you can become a god. So does Mormonism. If you live the righteous life. But Hinduism believes in reincarnation and evolution. And if you have children in school, high school, middle school, 8th, ninth, 10th, 11th grade, and then they're in their science classes. And whenever evolution is brought up, they should stand up and say, "Oh, you can't talk about religion in school because evolution is the foundation to Hinduism." Okay, we talk about the modern paganism beliefs in the divine people, male and female. Many gods may or may not exist within this principle. Jesus was a good man who existed the deity, divinity present in all humanity. Meaning, if you are doing everything that's right, you are like Jesus, and then you are deified as a god. Think about this. A lot of people make certain human beings on the earth gods. You have some people who've made Trump a god. You've had some people make Michael Jackson a god, Michael Jordan a god, LeBron James a god. Basically, you know, it's almost like when God created us with a soul and a spirit, meaning we are spiritual beings, and in that being spiritual beings, we um, we can communicate through the spirit, and this is more prevalent in your pagan religions, especially in soothsaying, palm reading, seances, and so forth. You can connect with the spiritual world. You might not like what you find, but you really can. Walter Martin talks about his book, Ancient Paganism. The Supreme Being is generally acknowledged as creator and called Father in every primitive culture where he is addressed. He lives somewhere above the earth. This is their thinking. He is a being, so his physical form cannot be exactly represented. He is described as invisible, like the wind or like fire. And so this is some of what um, Walter Martin talks about in chapter 4 of his book, Ancient Paganism. And we have here Professor Jackson.
Okay.
And I just started. I was just uh, I started off in ancient paganism in Kingdom of the Cults. I also have Ancient Paganism by Ken Johnson in front of me also. And I believe I got this book out of your library maybe 35, 40 years ago. Backward masking, unmasking, rock and roll.
Okay.
And so basically the topic is how the world religions are going to come together. We know we're living in the end times, and eventually there's going to be a treaty or a or something of a meeting of the minds of Hinduism, Buddhism, Islam, Catholicism, the Mormons, Jehovah Witnesses, and so forth and so on, where they come together and basically, I guess, settle their differences. They're already trying to teach there are many ways to God. Unfortunately, the Bible does not preach that.
Well,
And
the Bible is so far away from that, where Jesus said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No man comes to the Father but by me. And so, if there is another way, then Jesus is lying or he was nuts. Okay? One of the two. Okay? He's either telling the truth, he's lying, or he's crazy. Okay? If there is another way to God. He said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No man comes to the Father but by me.
so,
So,
what about those people that say, well, all of religions speak about Jesus and he was a good man, he did great things.
well, then okay, then the next question that you ask is, would a good man be a liar? Would a good man be a deceiver? Would a good man be that self-deceived to think that he's the only way to God? And so if you want to say that he is lying, okay, or he is self-deceived, then does that make him a good man? Does that make him a good prophet? Okay, so that's the next question. Oh, he was just a good man. He was just a little bit off. Really, well, does that make him a good man?
Right.
So that's always the next question when somebody comes up with that.
I got you now. Um, I know you've been going to prophecy conference since I don't know when. As far as the other world religions, can you see? Because I this Pope hasn't called on a conference or whatever of the world religions, to the Vatican or whatever. So, do you see that happening here in the near future?
Actually, no, I don't. See, here's where I believe that what L.A. Marzulli is teaching comes into fore when he says that. And actually, actually I heard it before he did. I heard Winky say the same thing in his message, "The Coming Counterculture," in 1977. And this was 3 years before LA even got saved, because he didn't get saved until 1980. He said, this is the way Winky put it. He said, if you know what I would do? He said, I would come down in a UFO, at about the time the world is about to destroy itself, and I would say, you're about to destroy yourself. Said, but we're the ones that seeded you here, and if you follow us, then we will give you medicines that will help you to live forever. We will give you technology that is out of this world. You know, uh, just follow us, and what would step out of that flying saucer would be your Sunday school picture of Jesus Christ.
Mm-hmm.
And out of a Muslim country, it might be the Mahdi. If
Mm-hmm.
out of a Hindu country, it would come out, say, looking like one of the Vedas. In other words, each society um, would see their own earthly deity would step out of would step out of that flying saucer. Now, what would happen is this, instantly you would have the entire world watching. The way Winky put it was that the world would be divided, is on its way to being divided between two groups, which is okay. He said this is 77, so we're talking about almost 50 years ago. He taught this. Okay, so he said the world will be divided into roughly two groups: the thinkers, the people that are into technology, the runnings of government, and things such as that, and the people that are the feelers, the people that are into dance and the arts and religion. And you have to have one person that would have to unite the entire world and say, okay, we will follow you. And so if a flying saucer came down, if a UFO came down, and and instantly the entire world would be watching. And so you unite both groups of people at the same time with one fell swoop. Okay. And so if that is something that actually did happen, Winky said, I'll be in the corner saying, show me the holes in your hands. That's what he said.
Right.
But the bottom line is this, is that do I think that the world religions are coming together? Actually, no, I don't, because there's this thing called doctrine. Okay. That each one has a specific doctrine that says, I am the way. Okay. Islam says that it is the way. But you can't. The problem is this: is that they have to do something with Jesus. He's just so powerful that in as far as who he is and what he taught, you have to do something with him. You cannot ignore him. And so each one of the religions has something that they've done with him, even though they might talk about Jesus. It is not the Jesus of the Bible. It is not the Jesus of Scripture. And
Right.
so whether you say in Islam that he was a great prophet that got himself all screwed up, and got himself crucified, but he was a little bit deceived because he really wasn't God, okay? And he didn't really teach that he was God, okay? They just misinterpreted. If it is Judaism, that would say, no, he can't be our Messiah, okay? If it is the Hindus, they would say, well, he was just one of our many, 3 million different deities and whatnot, right? That we've got. So they do something with him. They can't just ignore him. But yet he stands out like a healed thumb in the middle of a sick world and says, I am the only way. And you have to follow me my way in order to come to the Father.
Okay, so now let's go to the other side of the spectrum where you have Satanists and mediums who flat out reject the Bible, reject the teachings, the gospel, and everything like that. I mean, they're going to be called also. They're going to be they're going somebody's going to reach out to them also.
Right. And so what happens is that the when a society or a group of people decide that they're going to reject Jesus, they don't become atheists. What they do is they go to magic. And so they would look at that UFO and say there's something mystical, something magical about it. And for the person that would step out for them, it wouldn't necessarily have to be Jesus Christ. It would be something. It might be the devil with a red, with horns and a pitchfork that steps out and says, "See, it was me." And you know, and granted, the devil wants to be worshipped. That's the one thing he wants, and it doesn't matter where it comes from. Okay, he wants to be worshipped. When he tried to turn this country irreligious, okay, where I'll start this from where I normally start this when I'm having this conversation. I'll start this at the Scopes monkey trial of 1925. So we're talking 100 years ago.
All right.
Okay. So within 40 years, you had prayer taken out of schools in 1962. You had um, the Bible reading taken out of schools in 1963. In 1967, Time magazine ran a cover story saying God is dead.
Mm.
Okay. And so within 40 years of the Scopes monkey trial being, and for those of you who don't know what the Scopes monkey trial was, that is the trial where it was allowed to be taught at the end of the trial that evolution can be taught literally as a theory in schools and not just creation. And so what happens is that when evolution begins to be taught as a theory, but yet it says it's a theory, they call it the theory of evolution, but it's being taught as fact. Okay, so when that happens, there is no need for God. Okay, so then within 40 years, the culture begins to turn irreligious, but the the problem is that the devil wants to be worshipped. And because he wants to be worshipped, he had to turn the culture back to religious. Okay, and so some you had the Beatles who went and hung around with the Maharishi back in the late 60s, early 70s. Okay, and people said, oh, religious. They went and picked up a Bible, and oops, some of them got saved. And all of a sudden you had the Jesus movement and the charismatic movement of the late 1960s and 70s into the 80s, the charismatic movement. And
Hmm.
so the devil was like, oh golly, I didn't mean for it to do that. So he was a little bit nonplussed. Let's put it that way. And
Right.
so what the devil meant for rotten, okay, God turned around and used it for good. And the Jesus movement and the charismatic movement, they were not true revivals, because what revival does is that it impacts the culture that it is sent to. When you read about the revivals of the 1800s, well, say the first Great Awakening and the first Great Awakening under who were the Wesley brothers, John and Charles Wesley, and
Okay.
George Whitfield, and Jonathan Edwards with his sermon on sinners in the hands of an angry God, which he used to preach all over the place. Okay, with that awakening, um, it began to steel this country for what eventually became the Revolutionary War.
Now, let
With
me ask you this real quick. Since you're in that time frame, does the name Harry Hoosier sound familiar?
Yeah, he was a black preacher that was preaching during that time in Indiana, if I remember correctly.
That is correct.
And
That's
so, very,
yeah.
very,
I
from
was just I
never
just
read any of his sermons, but I know that from what I've read about him, he was very eloquent in his teaching.
yeah, I just wanted to bring that out. Basically, to some people, they don't know who he is, and I guarantee Indiana Hoosiers, those who claim to be Hoosiers, know who Harry is. Yeah.
All right, let me get back to where I was going just for just a moment. Okay, in the Second Great Awakening, which started because the spearhead of the Second Great Awakening was a guy by the name of Charles G. Finney.
Mm.
And when Finney preached, Finney was a lawyer, okay,
Right.
and so he took that training to his Bible study, okay, and the way he preached. And so with the Second Great Awakening, which steeled the country for the war between the states, there was a guy by the name of de Tocqueville that came through the country. And what he wrote was that you couldn't go through the towns without hearing people singing hymns in the houses. There were towns that had to get rid of their police department because there was no crime going on. There were towns that had no taverns because nobody was out there getting drunk during the evenings. And so that's the way the revival of the Second Great Awakening and also the first affected the culture. That is not what happened with the Jesus movement and the charismatic movement. Okay, it did not affect the culture the way revival did with the first and second Great Awakening. Okay, but it did steal the country as far as the backbone was concerned for for a war that was just about to happen. The first being the Revolutionary War, which gave this country its freedom. It had to, you know, hit 13 colonies, were vastly outgunned by the British Empire, which was the greatest empire the world had ever seen at that moment. Okay, and then you're talking about the American Civil War, or the war between the states, which was the one that actually got rid of slavery in this country.
Now, let's 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 move forward to the Jesus movement, the charismatic movement. A lot of other, uh, like I said, on the dark side, were also prevalent then, such as witchcraft, Wicca, Druids, Satanism, palm reading, seances, stuff like that. This is where, remember, this is Halloween, so this is where all your movies came from. This type of atmosphere.
Okay, so what's your question?
Oh shoot, I forgot. I didn't give you a question. Well, what I wanted to know was, um, because Walter Martin speaks about it a lot, especially in his the recordings that are on YouTube about these different, doctrines of demons, um, Satanism. How Antoine LaVey, the founder of the Satanist Church,
Hold on. I'm doing the podcast with Carol. I'll call you back. Bye bye.
and so how Walter Martin says LaVey explained the Wicca witchcraft movement better than anybody in that time. And you had the books. I was a teenager at the time, and so yeah, I read a lot of the stuff that you had in your room as far as like during the Jesus movement. Did you ever experience, you know, um, people like that, people that were in it, people who were doing tarot cards and things like that?
Actually, yeah, I was a part of an exorcism a long time ago, which is a memory that I do my best to put out of my mind. But I was involved in an exorcism back in, I think, 1982, 83, something like that. And um, as far as my life is concerned, God did a specific healing of me as a part of the charismatic movement, um, where I actually experienced a miracle of God. Um, I'm sure that you may remember me being allergic to shelled seafood.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I'm at Creation 84, and I'm talking with Larry Tomzak, and we're sitting outside, and Circus Alleluia is doing their performance, and one of the guys at Circus Alleluia has a gift for word of knowledge and word of wisdom. And so as he's saying different people are being healed of this, and Larry and I are outside the tent talking, and all of a sudden I feel like this white hot flame fly, go through my body. And the guy from Circus Hallelujah says, God is healing someone of an allergy right now, of a seafood problem, seafood allergy right now. And I say to Larry, I said, I think he's talking about me. And so Larry says to me, well, if you believe this and you've got faith for it, then we need to test it. We need to test it right now. And
Right.
so I asked him, I said, do you have a car? He says, no. I said, well, if he's not right, my car is parked over there, and you're going to have to get me to a hospital to get me a Benadryl shot because my throat's going to close up
Mm.
and I won't be able to breathe. And so he said, well, we need to test this. We go and get an egg roll at one of the vendors, and I begin to feel this tingling in my arm that I had felt before, but that was all it was. It was just a tingle. and I've been able to eat shelled seafood ever since. And so I had that for like 10 years, 10 or 12 years. And so, I've been able to eat shelled seafood ever since. Now, as far as what the devil was doing, the devil literally, he wanted to bring the culture back to being religious. And so he literally used the Eastern invasion from the Maharishi and Swamiji and a bunch of others, um, to bring Eastern thought form into this country. And I'll say this: he's been very insidious about it, and it's actually worked where you can almost not see a commercial break on any TV show without seeing something with Eastern thought in it, whether it is meditating, whether it is one of the postures, the way people hold their bodies. Almost every commercial break, you see something with Eastern thought in it. And so that's been like, as Winky calls it, a locust plague to eat out the spiritual foundations of this country.
Yeah, I remember when Second Baptist was um, wanted to put yoga, have a yoga night at the church, and I was in the meeting, and I basically just said to them, you understand yoga is Hinduism. The Lord doesn't want us to empty our minds. He wants us to fill our minds with the Word.
When
And so
you told them it was Hinduism, what did they say?
nothing. It's almost every time I would explain something to them, they were like, "How does he know this?" Like look on their face. And at that time, that's when the pastor went to Linda Powell because that's she was trying to get it started, and so I don't think that would be good for the Christian church because it involves a forbidden religion, and so yes, I was I remember being in the Navy, and one of my Navy buddies and whatnot, he had Mormons come to his house like almost every day, and I was already trying to move into the apartment complex, and he invited me over when they came, and when they started to talk, I basically started asking them about different verses and different scripture out of the Book of Mormon. That's when they invited us to the church because they didn't know the answers. So I got in front of the elders. Mind you, I'm 20 years old. I'm 20 years old. I'm newly married. I got a son, baby boy, and now I am in a Mormon, temple, basically debating or going back and forth with the pastors of the church. And so so basically I after everything was over with, I came back home and I had a videotape that you gave me on Mormonism, and it was a VHS tape, and I gave it this Staplefield, and he played it. Him and his wife watched it, and then at this time, me and Yolanda was in the complex. We weren't in the same building. He came to my house, knocked on the door. Him and his wife. He's like, "Yeah, we ain't going back there no more," and gave me the tape. And so, I guess I was witnessing unknowingly. I remember they started up a little Bible study, on the ship, And Staplefield told me, he was like, you should go to their Bible study. So I went to their Bible study, and
Oh, Mormon Bible study?
no, this is in on the ship, the Conley
Okay.
that we was on, USS Conley, which is decommissioned right now, and I think it was down even in the in laundry. It was either in laundry the or it was in the personnel office. So I'm there. I got my Bible, and they're going over a verse. I can't remember which one. All I know is that they started asking me questions, and I was answering them. And then when I would elaborate, everybody was silent. Y'all ain't got nothing to say. This y'all Bible study. I just came here to, check y'all out. I remember doing it again on the Austin. And I'm in the Bible study, and the doctrine of the Trinity comes up. And it was like, Jesus is not God. And I'm like, yes, he is. And I started pointing them to John. I stopped and the first John, I'm showing them and whatnot, and they was like, Petty Officer Jackson, we glad you came down here tonight because we learned something that we didn't know. I was like, you all are believers, and you didn't believe John 1 through 14, that Jesus Christ came to earth as God in the flesh and did what no other human being could do, which was fulfill the law and then die and be resurrected for our sins. So we can go to heaven. We have an option now. We don't have to burn any cows. We don't have to sacrifice anything. We don't have to build a golden calf. All we have to do is believe and have faith, and we're saved by grace. And out of that, there will be works because God will call you to do something. He will then give you your purpose here on earth. And so I remember walking into a witchcraft shop. Oh, it was a bookstore. I forgot who I was with, but we walked into the bookstore, and the lady behind the counter was just looking at me. No matter where we went, she was looking at me. And I forgot who I was with. I don't know if it was Tate or Turner, but I was like, I think we need to leave. He said, why? They got some interesting stuff in here. They got some magic stuff in here, like with the cars and stuff. I was like, yeah, you can do all that. Matter of fact, I'm gonna go ahead and go to the car and sit in the car. My spirit was telling me this is not the place for you to be at. I need you to leave. You're not prepared. And that's the thing. You heard about the serpent mound in Ohio,
Yeah. I had never heard of that until I was listening to LA.
right? So, um, in it, he tells a story of a pastor who thought that God was calling him to pray and cast out all the demons on the serpent mound. And I don't know if you heard the story by him, but I heard it. He said the pastor told him, we're in the middle of summer and my toes and fingers are frostbitten. And as I struggle to get away from the mound, I hear God saying, this is not the purpose I have for you. Go home. You know, and so reason why I bring it up because their cult they're being bold about everything now. I remember listening to your tapes. They're now on YouTube now, where John Todd said you have to perform homosexual acts if you're a witch. You just have to. And and unfortunately, some in the gay community don't understand that. My pastor, he's afraid to hire musicians for the church for that reason. He's afraid to hire musicians for that express reason. I'm watching, well, people are sending me videos of church services, and I'm like, oh, wow. You think you're in the club. It's not a worship service. It's the DJ on the ones and twos, and just people just dancing any old kind of way, and it's sexual in the church. But I believe that the papacy will bring all of these world religions together. But I believe it will happen after the rapture. That's when I believe it'll happen. After the rapture.
Well, there is in scripture talked about mystery Babylon.
Ooh.
Okay, and the papacy does have much of. All right, let me put it this way. Let me stop for just a moment. As far as I am concerned, outside of the Trinity, the resurrection and deity of Jesus Christ, the virgin birth, and the second coming, I think that everything else that Roman Catholicism teaches is heresy. Okay, I think they have those three basics right, which is the reason why there are people in the Roman Catholic Church that are saved, such as, say, maybe Mother Teresa and a few others. I
Mm-hmm.
think that more likely than not, okay, John Paul II was probably saved. I have a feeling that um, Pope Benedict was probably saved. The Pope that just died, I think he's pretty hot right now. Okay, let's put it that way. Um, I think Pope Pius, I think it was the sixth, the one that was hanging around with Hitler. He's probably, got some roasting going on too right now.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Uh, the one that was the John Paul the first. I don't, I mean, he was poisoned and whatnot, right? He lasted what, 21 days, 29 days,
Oh,
you
wow.
know.
I ain't know about
So, and then we had John Paul II. As I said, I think that he's probably pretty comfortable right now. Welcome to the joy of your Lord. And I think that Pope Benedict was probably saved. Okay, Pope Benedict was before they actually made him Pope. Okay, he was a guy. He was Cardinal Ratzinger.
that. Ah.
Okay, he was the one that John Paul sent down to South America in order to check out what they called, I think, revolution theology or something like that. And he came back with his report and said, this is socialism and we should have nothing to do with it.
Mm. Okay.
Okay. And after John Paul, passed, he's the one that they made the next pope.
I got you.
And
I
so, uh, I'm in no way, shape, or form a fan of Roman Catholicism. I know way too much about it.
Same here.
But I do know that people can be saved if they are Christian. I mean, if they are Catholic.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, I'm not going to say that they can't. I'm saying that it might be harder. They've got to go through a lot more crap as far as their doctrine to reach the real Jesus Christ.
Right.
Because as Walter Martin said, the major issue is, who is Jesus Christ? What did he do? and what does it mean to you?
That's
And
it.
so a Roman Catholic has to deal with all of that, has to deal with all the extracurricular mess about who Mary is and the Queen of Heaven, and asking Mary to talk to her son Jesus so that Jesus might do something for you. There's just a lot of extracurricular crap that has grown up in the Roman Catholic Church that for what is it, 1600 years in the Roman Catholic Church, where they've been writing doctrine, and so, and their Roman Catholicism, when Constantine said that, when Constantine said to tell Augustine, if you tell us what Christianity is, we will make it the official religion of the empire. All of, in other words, the official religion of the empire. They brought in all of their idols and they mixed paganism in with Christianity. They renamed the statues of Zeus into Saint Peter, and Semiramis was given the name of the Virgin Mary, and Tammuz is the baby Jesus, and all. There's just so much extracurricular stuff. The Roman Catholic Bible, they they get rid of the second commandment, for instance, right? The second commandment is you shall have no graven images.
Mm,
Okay, but they brought all of the idols into the church and redid the names.
that's right.
Okay, and so then they took the 10th commandment, which was um, no coveting of your neighbor's wife, and then no coveting of the neighbor's goods, which is all one commandment, which is the 10th commandment, and they split that in two in order to make it 10 commandments. And they completely got rid of no graven images, which is the second commandment. And so the Roman Catholic, I think it's called the Douay version. I'm not quite sure if that's it, but they played games with certain scriptures. Let's put it that way. There is a verse, I think in Jeremiah, that says that the Queen of Heaven is never to be worshipped, and they've completely gotten rid of that one
Mm,
because they call Mary the Queen of Heaven. And so it's just, as I said, I believe that Roman Catholicism, outside of the major doctrines, which is the second coming of Christ, the the second coming, virgin birth, the Trinity, okay, uh, the rest of it pretty much is heresy, and you
mm,
have to go through a whole bunch of other crap in order to get to what is real Christian doctrine. It is not a coincidence that they do not teach of the rapture of the church. They only teach the second coming. They don't talk about the rapture of the church at all.
mm,
And so they do not talk about end times prophecies as if we're living in the end times because
that's
they
right.
want to have control over Jerusalem themselves.
That's right.
And so there's a lot of crap with Roman Catholicism. Let's put it that way.
So, by saying that, then, do you think they're funding some of the terror groups that surround Israel?
Do I think they're funding them? I You would have to show me positive information that they actually are. Okay?
It was just something that popped in my head.
I don't necessarily think so. I think that Iran is funding most of them. I think that Qatar is funding a lot of them, and definitely Turkey is funding some of them. Okay, uh, along with, I mean, Saudi Arabia. Remember, most of the hijackers from 9/11 were from Saudi Arabia,
Right.
and so do I think the Vatican is actually funding them? I honestly, unless you show me proof, I would say no.
Well,
Do I-
the reason why I ask is because Islam and Catholicism are very close bedfellows.
Well, that's because Muhammad used to hang out with the Catholic priests
Right.
when he was growing up. And so there's a lot of stuff that Islam has in it that Muhammad got from the nuns in the 700s.
That's right.
Okay. The whole thing about the Mahdi. Okay. That's that is the rider on the white horse. They believe that that is the Mahdi.
Mm.
And so there's a lot of stuff that um, there's a lot of stuff that Islam that Muhammad stole from the Catholic Church and brought it into Islam. But never forget that Allah was one of the three moon gods that the Arabs were worshiping,
At that time.
even before Christ.
That's right.
And it was Muhammad who came up and said, no, there's only one, and his name is Allah, but he's one of the three moon gods originally.
Oh, and in Hebrew, Allah means devil.
That
Just
I did not know.
yes.
I would have to see. Well, is that in scripture or is that just the name? Or is
that's
that just in the
that's
language?
the interpretation. If you,
Oh, okay.
it basically it means devil in Hebrew.
Okay. Because I know that Hamas is in our scriptures at least, what, four times,
That's right.
okay, in the Hebrew. Save us from the man of Hamas, which means violence.
Right. And think about it. In Arabic, Hamas doesn't mean that. But in Hebrew it means violence. Funny. And the reason why I brought up the bedfellows is like you said, he hung out with them, and that's because his first wife was Catholic.
Well, I the thing about Muhammad that gets me is that he married a 9-year-old girl, which means he was a pedophile.
Yeah, everybody knows that story.
Actually, no, not everybody does. That's just it. And so you say that to some Islamists and whatnot, right? And they want to cut your throat.
Mm. Well, I mean, right now, woo, we're coming up on the time. I was hoping Apostle Jolly would come on, but uh, his wife's school is doing something, and it's nighttime, so he wants to be there with her. He don't want to driving home alone, which is
Okay.
understandable. I just want to at least, again, tell the people where they can find your writings.
Well, I
You
haven't posted anything in a while, but I'm on Substack. You can look for the things that I've written. I've only posted two. I need to really get back on the stick as far as posting stuff. Is you look for biblical prophetic worldview. If you go on Substack, if you look for that, you'll find me.
all right, and before I go, I just want to thank Metro Conservative Media, uh, from Pop and Politics, All American Show, Just the Guys, and Christian Conservative, and my man Tyrone from Soldiers of Finance. They inspired me to do this, what I'm doing right now. I also, um, I'm gonna try to create some shorts for this broadcast to put on my YouTube page. You can find me at Kung Fu CJ 6734 on YouTube, where you can see me talking about faith, politics, and nice cars. Yeah, yeah. I did post a lot of vehicles from the last car show I was at, which was Big Bash, which was last Saturday. There was a huge show. They had well over 300 cars there, and so I did Laos exhaust and SPL competition. So I have a lot of video for that too. But I want to thank everybody who came on and listened. Please hit the like button and subscribe. We are leaving right now. I'm still trying to get my son to resend me jet lags so I can get on this plane and leave. But since he hasn't done it, we're gonna have to go out with this one. So peace, everybody. Thank you.
All right, Carl, I'm out of here. I'll
All
talk to
righty.
you.
Thanks.